evening here, Shifting Paradigms with your host, B. Michael. We're here at KUAW, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom Radio at the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center, 4510 East Linwood Boulevard. This is brought to you by the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. Baba G is behind the soundboard, always doing his thing. Big up to Baba G every day for all that he does for this community with this radio station and more, much, much more. So today we were going to be having a paradigm called Renaissance Paradigm, but what has happened is my man Sharon Smith, who may come in a little later, but he's actually doing his health care at this particular time. Sharon, aka Heaven Raiser, suffered a aneurysm in 2010, and we were going back and forth emailing with some things, and it just kind of went back and forth. And I actually spoke with him a little later. He actually was just attending to his personal health care with some matters, and he may be in later. Hopefully he can get in. And it's just, sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want, but nonetheless we proceed. But I just want to give you all a little brief overview of this brother here. We may get him on in the near future. Sharon Smith, aka Hellraiser, also known as Heaven Raiser, is best known as a member of the Sons of Man. This was a group that is affiliated with the Wu-Tang Clan. He was a featured member in that group, along with Prodigal Son, Killer Priest, 60-Second Assassin, and Shabazz the Disciple. And they had their first album that came out, I believe, in the late 90s. And then Razor actually dropped his solo debut when All Hell Breaks Loose back in '01. So this brother's been in the industry putting it down for a while. And he's actually has probably up to about, I think, five solo projects. I came on to him on the Killer Priest album, the Heavy Mental, his first album, when he was on this track called Ta Chi. And it was just groundbreaking for me at that time. I was just really coming early into Israelite consciousness, and here it is. You got Killer Priest speaking about being an Israelite, back in 2000, in a very, very important time in my life in terms of spiritual development and consciousness. And he had a crew with him that was also speaking about that. There's a group also that he's with called Black Market Militia. Sharon Heaven Raiser Smith is with a group called Black Market Militia. He's also with a group called the Maccabees, and he just puts it down. He's got a lot of features on a lot of different other people's albums, and he's got some people featured on his albums. And so this brother is a hip hop veteran, to say the least, and has Israelite consciousness. And this is something that is very, very interesting in the media today. We go back to Deshaun Jackson's comment, a quote that he says, commenting with Hitler, and that just stirred up the waters in a very intense way. Not so much that he was, supporting Hitler's pogroms or what his ideology was, but he was showing that Hitler was very well aware of the identity of the children of Israel. In fact, there's a Time Life magazine printed in the 60s that also corroborates that particular matter, that Hitler knew that the children of Israel were, in fact, what he would say, Negro. And so it's a very interesting thing. And of course, most recently you had Nick Cannon also making similar statements a year ago in an interview he had with Professor Griff that actually was considered inflammatory and anti-Semitic, and so that matter has also caused a conflagration of sorts, which actually had Cannon apologize and Deshaun Jackson apologize for, offending the Jewish community. And these unfolding events are very interesting when you really put them in perspective of just history and prophecy. Of course, we have to really wrestle with that as a people who have had our identity stripped from us, our history stripped from us, our language stripped from us, our culture stripped from us, and it is perhaps most prominently like demonstrated in the movie Roots, when Kunta Kinte is whipped to the degree where he now takes on the name of Toby, which is interesting. Is a Hebrew name anyway. Tobiah is actually a Hebrew name as well. But they changed his name from Kunta Kinte, his tribal ancestral name, to Toby, in order to really change his whole identity and his whole trajectory as a human being, to dehumanize him. And anybody who places a name on someone else exercises authority over that individual. And so that was the intent of that enslavement and what they call the breaking process of the so-called Negro or the African descendant. And so, these were some things that he and I were going to discuss. But now I'm just going to kind of, just fill in some blanks because, we are just got a little some space and time to kind of improvise. I did count on Brother Heaven Razor being here, but unfortunately at this particular time he is undergoing some health care due to his recovery, his road to recovery. But when we just again take a step back and we look at everything that is unfolding, it's a very interesting time and space that we're in. But I do have four other shows that are lined up for Shifting Paradigms. In 2 weeks, we'll have a Peace Paradigmatic with a brother by the name of Kevin Muhammad. He is a local Kansas City resident who is a part of the Nation of Islam. And we're going to just really, delve into some of the ideology and the perspectives and outlooks of the Nation of Islam, as they've also come under scrutiny as a result of people taking the minister Louis Farrakhan's comments and looking at their, what they would say again, inflammatory statements that he has made, which is controversial to say the least. But when you again put everything in perspective, you have to really examine the words that men speak and women speak and weigh it out. What is the truth of the matter? So this is something that Brother Kevin Muhammad and myself are going to be discussing on the 17th this particular month. October 5th, we're going to have another hip hop representative in this, well, not in the studio, but on the Zoom. His name is Timothy Taylor. He is a founding member of Poor Righteous Teachers. I'm sure some of you true hip hop heads are familiar with who Poor Righteous Teachers are. They released a joint back in the late 80s called Rock This Funky Joint. So yeah, his name is Wise Intelligent. So Wise Intelligent will be joining us via the Zoom application to talk about intelligence paradigmatics. Now, this is a brother who's a true veteran. He's a veteran. Of course, he goes back to the late 80s, during the golden age of hip hop, the backpack era. You're dealing with De La Soul. You're dealing with A Tribe Called Quest. You're dealing with Brand Nubian. You're dealing with, this East Coast consciousness movement, Boogie Down Productions, when hip hop was really about the revolution. One of the things that he really points out was when Rodney King was beat by the police, what was the music that was playing on the airwaves? You had NWA F the Police, you had what's the name of that group? Public Enemy, Fight the Power. You had all these different revolutionary Tennessee, by Arrested Development. In the 90s, you had a balance of hip hop that allowed for people to really identify with a culture that was uplifting, that was positive, that was revolutionary, that was culturally infused. And so you saw the result of what took place when Rodney King got beat in Los Angeles by the police. But then he goes on to point out Sean Bell, who was murdered at his bachelor party And the number one song in rotation at that time was "Lick Me Like a Lollipop" by Lil Wayne, Lil Weezy, and the response, which was nothing. And so you have to really examine the role that hip hop has played in that. And Wise Intelligent is perhaps one of the most, critical analysts of hip hop culture that I've, been exposed to in terms of just his music and his some of his lectures that he's had, that he's got on YouTube and his Facebook page. Because music is a weapon when we really understand that, and we have to look at what music is doing to the minds of our people today. Because when hip hop first came out, like I said, there was a balance. Of course, you had the entertainment side, but then you had the edutainment side of music. And that was very important because you had a choice to choose from the mainstream of which artists you would like to listen to. You had two types of appeals that people could, tune into. But today we don't even really have a choice in the mainstream, because the program that is being ran in the music industry is unquestionably menticidal. It is intent on destroying the minds of particularly the youth, because if you got the youth, then the future is sealed. And so we have to find a way to really get back into, a music that has a consciousness to it. And we have to hold our artists accountable. I had a conversation yesterday with some people, and we were talking about, it was actually my fiance and my brother I grew up with, brother Create. We were talking about, what music is doing today, and just saying, hip hop today and rap today is just so negative. And I had to interject and say, well, what's so deep about it? When you look at MTV, when MTV first came out, I was born 75, so I got a little, I've been around the block a few times. And so I've seen some things, just not a lot, but, in just really contextualizing the hip hop evolution, because I'm a B-boy, when hip hop came out, I was right there. And so when you look at MTV, they're like Yo MTV Raps, and then even like the other music that was being played, and you look at like what rock music and the metal industry was playing on MTV, well, you'll see the materialism, you'll see the misogyny, you'll see the drugs that were present in the metal, the rock music. But what happened was a concerted effort of the community, particularly dealing with Caucasian women, that was like, we're not going to stand for this. We're not going to be exploited like this through our music. And they organized, and they actually stood against that onslaught of cultural encroachment and attack on the woman. And they changed the whole narrative, and they held their artists accountable. But here it is in our community, in our culture, we allow people to degrade and to talk in the most crass way about our women. And it's so interesting. Dr. Clark, John Henry Clark, I believe it was he who said, if you want to look at the condition of a people and understand their plight, look at the women. Look at the condition of the women, because those are the first teachers of the child. And if the women are not at a level of decency and consciousness, then that culture, that those people are really facing extinction, potentially facing extinction. And this is something we have to examine, take a hard examination in our community. I'm not saying the brothers are exempt at all, but we have to examine how our brothers are treating our sisters and how they're talking about it, and then how our sisters are carrying themselves. Because when you listen to like Megan Thee Stallion, you listen to Cardi B, you listen to Nicki Minaj, and the ideology that they espouse, more than likely not the lifestyle that they fully live. They may have been in that particular lifestyle at one time or other, but that's not their reality. By and large, that's not their reality. Even Snoop has been a married man for years. And so when he's talking about, bees ain't nothing but garden tools and tricks, he had a wife at home. He had a wife at home. And same with Ice Cube, O'Shea Jackson. When he was in NWA, he was married. Cube been married for a long time, and so we gotta really look at the music industry and hold our artists accountable. And that's why I'm bringing these two conscious artists on board. Like I said, unfortunately, right now, Sharon, brother Sharon is doing some rehab at this particular time to make sure that his health is at an optimum, and I respect that. We just had some cross wires that didn't allow for us to bring him onto the show at this time, and hopefully he may come on later, like I said, but he is doing his rehab right now to make sure that everything is in alignment for him. So again, on September 17th, we're going to have Kevin Muhammad with the Nation of Islam. We're going to be discussing peace paradigmatics. On October 5th, we're going to have Timothy Taylor, aka Wise Intelligent, with the Poor Righteous Teachers. We're going to be discussing intelligence paradigmatics. On October 22nd, I think it is, which is the following Monday, the Monday after the 5th, we're going to be having a local author, a yoga practitioner, and a vegan by the name of Tyler A. Norman. We're going to be discussing healing paradigmatics. We're going to go back into that realm of healing and talk about her journey, her book that she has released recently, and allow for her voice to be heard and to promote her book. She has a book called, I believe, let me look up the name of the book right quick. She just released it this year. I haven't read it yet. I told her I would get it and check the book out. So her book is entitled, it's a love theme, and it's dealing with just self-healing and self-love. That's the name of her book. It's pulling it up as I'm scrolling through a blog. That dead air is not good, so I'm gonna fill it up. Here it goes. Love Starts Here is the name of her book. Love Starts Here. And so we're going to be discussing her book, what inspired her to write it, and what the message of it is, and how, it can help others on their journey of healing as well. And so she's talking about creating love within for a life never without. So that's the subtitle of the book by Tyler A. Norman. So what's going to be exciting there. And then we're also going to have and that's going to, like I said, a healing paradigmatic. And then we're going to have another sister on the show by the name of Michelle. I want to say her last name is Williams. And so she is the founder of the Black Sunflower, which is a writers collective in this region, Kansas City, and also in the state of Kansas. And we're going to be discussing literary paradigmatics and the importance of writing, and how, all that can really be a therapeutic and even a revolutionary outlet. As I'm a writer as well, you can check my blog out, HebrewVisionNews.wordpress.com, and just the importance of writing. So it's an art that is also very powerful as well, and art itself has an important role in society, and that's something that again, we can definitely discuss at a future time. So I'm excited about the lineup that we have for Shifting Paradigms. We got the next 5 shows pretty much sealed up. And if you're interested in getting on Shifting Paradigms, you can email me. I actually have a new email address for Shifting Paradigms. It's shiftingparadigms1 at actually, let me look it up, make sure it is what I'm saying. I don't want to give you all the wrong address and you sent me something and I'll be like, I didn't get it because you gave me the wrong address. How about that? So I don't want to do that. So it is the number 1 Shifting Paradigms at protonmail.com, protonmail.com. And also, if there are any topics that you all are interested in having the show cover, please send those to me in email, and we can definitely do our best to cover that here on the show. And we've covered some ground. We've covered identity paradigmatics here and Shifting Paradigms, talking about, again, the Israelite consciousness of African people. That's a very, very important, and I would even say hidden, though it's resurfacing, but a hidden historical reality as relates to so-called African Americans. Just saying African Americans, but this is not something that is just confined to African Americans. You go to the Caribbean, you'll see a lot of Caribbean people who are identifying as Israelites. You go down to South America, you'll find a lot of South Americans of African ancestry identifying as Israelites. You go over into Europe, you'll find a lot of Africans in Europe identifying as Israelites. You go over into Asia and you'll see indigenous Israelites in Asia. And you go even into Africa, where there's probably one of the most pronounced professions of Israelite heritage among people, with the Limba, the Ashanti, there's people in Kenya, there's Tanzania, the Igbo. And so there's many African peoples who are identifying as Israel. And this is an important reality to understand, because one thing that really resonates is the fall of the city of Jerusalem in 70, when the Romans sacked the city. Okay, so when they sacked the city, they destroyed it. And prophetically in Matthew 24, Yehoshua, who I know is a Messiah, told the people to flee to the mountains. Well, when you understand the topography and geography of the land, the mountains are in the southern part, in the Negev desert. And so when they went there, they fled into the southern parts of the country and even into Egypt, because whenever some sort of crisis arose in the land, and you read this in the scriptures, from Abraham to Isaac, even not Jacob, but with David and with Moses, even they were leaving the country of Israel, which is also known as Canaan, and fled into the African continent. During the reign of Solomon, there were people who fled into the Sudan and established communities there. But what the point is, in 70, when the temple was destroyed, Israel went all the way into Yemen. Israel went all the way to Madagascar. Israel also went over into Timbuktu, to Mali, to Ghana, to Senegal. They spread across that entire continent. And this is documented. Bilal al-Sudan is one of the historians. He was a Muslim who documented in, I believe, like the 700s of the Israelite presence in Africa, based on the customs, based on the language, based on the people identifying themselves as Israelites. And so again, with this controversy coming to the forefront of media attention with Deshaun Jackson and Nick Cannon, it's not without reason. It's not without intent. It's not without symbolic representation, to say the least. And so as we're wrestling with this particular issue, there has to be research. Everything has to be proven. And that's the most important thing, is that we can't just dismiss something without doing due diligence, especially in this day and age, especially as a people whose roots have been uprooted. That's why we act the way we act, because we don't have roots to really say who we are. And I'm not saying that all people who are African American are Israelites. That's an impossibility. That is ridiculous to even make mention of that. Just because your ancestors were put on a slave ship does not mean that they were Israelites. Definitively speaking, there were many people who were picked up by the pirates and put aboard slave ships, many tribes, many different people. But it is also definitive, if you read some of the names on the slave manifests of those ships that were brought over during the Triangle Trade and the transatlantic passage, that had Hebrew names. Definitively speaking, historically speaking. And so we have to take a time to really examine this stuff. You know, we have to stop being so misled by just what people say. And we have to do the research ourselves. That's something that I tell really anyone that I deal with personally. Like, don't just take it from me. Don't just listen to what I'm saying or what anyone is saying. Go home and prove it. Cross-reference right? Try it. See what it is, because that's the only way you're going to uncover the truth. There's no other way that you will. And our problem is, as a people, is we are a traditional people. We just accept traditions based on what we've inherited and haven't proven it. In my family, I'm the only one who identifies as an Israelite. In my family, I'm the only one who eats a vegetarian meal, a vegetarian diet. And I'm not knocking my family, but this is just the reality of my family. And I love my family more than anything. You know, we just have to understand our plight and what we need to do to move forward and evolve as an individual, but also as a people. And that requires going through that scientific process. You know, you got your hypothesis, you know, you got your testing, you got your observation, and then you got to make that conclusion based on the evidence that presents. And then when you make that conclusion, that objective conclusion, then you can start to say, this is the truth. And I can say definitively, that's my journey. That has been my journey. And I'll pick that up just after this brief break. It's 6:30. So I'm going to go ahead and take a brief moment to just let the station identify itself. KUAW, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom Radio here at WB Du Bois Learning Center. This is Shifting Paradigms. I'm your host, B. Michael. We'll be back shortly. Check, check, check. And we are back. I'm your host, B. Michael, here on Shifting Paradigms. And we are going over just some current events right now, you know, some things like that. I was just talking about, you know, the journey of coming into a consciousness that is, you know, based on a historical reality, you know, something that has been stripped from us as a people, you know, and I was just contextualizing it around the Deshaun Jackson and the Nick Cannon incident that has taken place, by which, of course, they both made statements that, you know, the Negro are the true children of Israel. And so that challenges a paradigm that presents the children of Israel as a Caucasian people, as a European people, exclusively, as if Israel or Canaan or Palestine is in a European land. And we know definitively that being that Israel or Canaan or Palestine, politically called Palestine, and understand the history of that, and not being offensive to the Palestinians, but understanding that Vespasian, and I actually made a statement, it was Hadrian, but the Emperor Vespasian in the year I want to say 35, or between 135 and 160, renamed that land Palestina. The Philistines had a region in that land, but the entire land was not called Palestine until Vespasian renamed it Palestina after exiling by force all the people of Judea. Okay, so that is a very interesting statement. But what I was saying is that land mass, first of all, is on the northern border of the country of Egypt in the continent of Africa. And of course, we've had to fight to even make Egypt a part of the African continent. As if Egypt is a part of, Asia. It's not. It is a part of the African continent, with the Nile River being right there. The Nile is in Africa. It is on the tectonic plate of the continent of Africa. And what's so interesting is the tectonic plate runs up into the Lebanon. So a part of what is known as the Levant, the eastern part of Africa, the northeastern part of Africa, is on the African tectonic plate, which makes it a part of the African continent. In fact, the Natufian people, who were the first people to inhabit the Levant in expressly what is known as Israel, are Bantu people. And the language of Hebrew, Ivrit is how it's really pronounced, Ivrit, is a Afro-Asiatic language. It is a Hamito-Shemitic language, Shemitic, not Semitic, Shemitic, from the people of Shem, which was one of Noah's sons, biblically speaking. Ham, of course, being another one of Noah's sons. And so when you're examining this and you see that the other languages that are akin and a part of that linguistic family, you have Amharic, which is the Ethiopian tongue. You have Ge'ez, which is also the Ethiopian tongue. You have the language of Arabic even, which is an important matter to understand. So Forrest Tyson has a comment on the KUAW Facebook page. He says, that's our fundamental problem, Brother Long. Most of us would rather be told what to think instead of taking the time to think for ourselves or think for ourselves. Yes, indeed. That is a very important. Critical thinking is an underrated skill in our day and time. I mean, we have to be able to think critically, but also be able to do research. We have to research. Our opinions are just that. They're ours. It's relative. The thing about truth is objective, and it transcends what you just believe. This is not about believing anymore. We have to get beyond the realm of just mere belief, because that's an opinion. Our belief has to be established on something. When we look at even the verse of Hebrews 11:1, it says, now faith, which is a belief, is the evidence of what is unseen and the substance of what is hoped for. So our faith is established upon substantial evidence or evidential substance, whichever one you want to take it. But there has to be something that is verifiable. Truth, it has to be established on truth. That's how we are to worship the Most High, in spirit, which is what we do great. But truth is something that we're challenged by. We are greatly challenged by the revelation of the truth, because we are such a traditional people. We've inherited traditions and customs that are not indigenous to us, number one, nor to even that book which we hold so dear, or that we actually revile and just hold in absolute contempt, because that's the book that was used to condition and program us, so to speak, during our enslavement. But think about that. What better tool to use than the truth to enslave somebody and just not give them the full truth and distort it and change the whole message to fit their agenda? That's genius, if you ask me. And that's the thing about the truth. And the thing about deception doesn't come wholesale. Somebody ain't gonna tell you something that's just gonna be like whatever. You'll know if it's a bold-faced lie. But if you mingle it and you blend it with the truth, that's gonna be hard. He says, I don't believe we have a right to our own opinion. You gotta prove your stuff. Yes, that's true. That's so true. Especially when we're dealing with what is called the kingdom of Elohim. The kingdom is based on the king's word, which is the truth. Opinions have no place in the kingdom. That's another paradigmatic that we dealt with, the kingdom paradigmatic. And that's something we got to understand, is that it is something that is so much larger than us. And then we have to decide which side we're on. Whose kingdom are we participating in? This is what we covered. This is all important. Our identity relates to our affiliation. What do we affiliate with? I had an African diaspora paradigm where, as of 2012, the African Union has decreed that the diaspora, the sixth region of the African Union, is now a government in and of itself. But the responsibility is on the people of the diaspora to organize this government. So do we continue to support a system that has failed and has misled and has disenfranchised and oppressed us, thinking that we're going to make a change in the system? Or do we finally decide to, what's the word I want to use? Divest and establish our own, because we have the framework for it now. We have the backing of 55 countries in Africa to go about establishing our own governmental reality. That's powerful. You can do the research. Look up the African Union Protocols of the Diaspora, the committee that took place in 2012, which was actually presided over with Barack Obama, the former president of the United States. That has put the diaspora and the diplomats, which all of us are, who affiliate with it. That's why I got my little lapel pin here. If you can see it on my shirt, I got my African Union lapel pin here now, because I recognize the importance of us having a political establishment and a political backing of the African continent. Because I guarantee you, the United States will not treat Chinese people like they treat African people, because the embassy in China will shut that down in a breath. And so we got to really look to understand what our power is, where our power is. And this is what Marcus Garvey always emphasized, the primacy of Africa. African people in the diaspora will never have respect if the continent of Africa is not respected first and foremost by us. But we're quick to fight and to deny our African ancestry, but we're quick to pick up the N word, and assume that and wear it proudly. And so we got to change our paradigm. And this is what this show is all about. Is like creating a new narrative, right? And creating a new reality based on conversation, based on intellectual and critical thought. And it's hard because we're so conveniently entertained that, a think tank would be nearly, I won't say it's impossible, because we do have African think tanks. We got a lot of people who are progressive. We got a lot of people who are conscious, but we need more of it. We need more of it. And so these are just, some of the things that shifting paradigms is about doing. I like to have fun. I like to laugh. I like to, spend time with my family and relax, and even sometimes unplug. I like that. But I know at the end of the day, our survival is number one. And we do got Kevin Razor here waiting. All right, that's what's up. All right. Razor, can you hear me, my brother? He got to get his mic tuned on. That's what's good. Razor, can you hear me, my brother? Got some reverb in the mic. He got to turn his audio on. right. That's what's up. Razor, you there, my man? All right. I don't think he has his audio on. Can you hear his me, mic is, I mean, his camera's not, his camera's off, and then I don't see the mic where he can actually talk. Razor, you there, my man? I don't think he has his audio on. His mic is, I mean, his camera. His camera's not on either though, so. The mic where he can actually talk. But he's in the room. Let me tell him he gotta turn his mic on. I was in the zone. Glad you checked, Baba G. Let me go and get this brother situated. His camera's not on either though. So. All right, my man. He's in the room. You gotta turn on your mic. You have to. In Zoom. So Razor's in the room. We just got to get his microphone going. My man. So this is Shifting Paradigms. I'm your host, B. Michael. We did have Renaissance. We do have Renaissance Paradigmatic. It's running just a little late. As I said, my man was just doing some things that he needed to do to take care of himself. And he was running late, but he's actually, you know, hopefully in the room. He's in the room. We just got to get his microphone going so we can actually hear his voice, because he's in the room. Let me see if I can get a call for him on this right quick. Yeah, so we're just trying to get this all arranged. Okay. So yeah, this is Sharon Heaven Razor Smith. He's out of Red Hook, Brooklyn, but now he's in Connecticut, living in Connecticut. And I said earlier, he is a Wu-Tang affiliate through the Sons of Man, through the Maccabees, through the Black Market Militia. And he's, like I said, a veteran in the game. Released his first solo album in 2001 called When All Hell Breaks Loose. And unfortunately, in 2010, he suffered a brain aneurysm in April. But he had a quick recovery, and he's still making music under a new name, Heaven Razor, after he had his experience. And, you know, he's just a general in his own right, you know, definitely in the music industry. He's also the president of what's called the Ghetto Government, which is an organization that is intent on using music to uplift the community. They have chapters, international chapters, that are just, you know, very busy in using, you know, positive art to uplift and to change people's reality. And he's just, you know, one of my, you know, favorite MCs in the industry, which is why I wanted to get him on the show. We've had an interview back in 2016, and I wanted to bring him to Shifting Paradigms so you all can get familiar with the brother. But for right now, his mic's not working. I don't know what's going on. He's got to get his mic going. Let me see if I can get with him on the chat. Okay. I have to turn on your mic. He may have to log out and log back in. But yeah, he's got some raw lyrics, some very raw lyrics. Like I said, the first track that he really stood out to me that I heard him on was from the Heavy Mental album, Killer Priest Heavy Mental album. He was on a track called Tai Chi, when he just kicked in the whole song with his verse. And this was back in the 90s. He's like, it's Nana, beware of biochips. My stuff hits harder than slave whips, like I waited to give tips. From Egypts to sea ships to being chased by New York cops out the precincts, and words was bricks. We building projects to pyramids. Evil kid, I'll destroy your blank like London Bridge. Smoke trees of weed, take off the leaves out the twigs. Pure truth is what I got to give, a lot to live for. You ain't rich before poor. It ain't peace without war. How could you stand without a floor? Under, over, intoxicated, sober, younger, older, you're elevated. Higher than an empire state. Elevators, I roll with creators and cremators. Stalking through this nature, the heaven raiser. Capacity in your brains beyond the clouds of rain. 7.5 are contained. Space was my birthplace. Meditate in cocoons. Now I see snakes in human costumes. Expand your mind. That's a verse that I first heard Heaven Raiser on. He was going by Hellraiser at the time, and I was like, who is this guy? Like, really, who is this guy? Like, oh my goodness. So I'm trying to get him to get his mic going and bring him in just for a brief moment, even just to get him going. But some reason we can't get him on the mic. His audio's not working. I tried calling him and then pick up. Razor, I don't know if you can hear me or not, my man. Yeah, it's not, no audio. Oh man. Yeah. He did. He inboxed me too and said I'm ready. This would have been great. Yeah, we'll schedule him again. We'll schedule him again if we don't get it tonight. We'll definitely take more time to get it. Yeah. No communication. Oh man. But yeah, the brother, he's a lyrical genius, very, very underrated, I would say, underground MC that, and I will say MC, like for real. Like he's not a rapper. He is a minister of ceremonies. He is a microphone controller. He is a true hip hop MC, and there's a difference between an MC and a rapper. And I will make that statement very clear as someone who, again, has my roots in hip hop as well. That's probably the first genre of music that most spoke to me. Of course, I listened to some R&B and stuff, but I identified first and foremost with hip hop. I'm talking about like the Fat Boys, UTFO, even like Roxanne Shante, Run DMC, some of the early groups, Curtis Blow, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. These were some of the MCs that was just like, whoa, And then of course with the 90s, you had your choice of different types of hip hop groups. I fell in love with MWA. I ain't even gonna front, and it was just more of a fad though, because it didn't stick with me. I mean, I liked MC8, I liked Spice One, I would listen to, some of the West Coast groups, but East Coast was always like my whole thing. It just stuck with me, especially when I first heard Brand Nubian. And it got me. Poor Righteous Teachers, it got me. I was like, oh my goodness, De La Soul. I was like, sold. That's hip hop. That was like hip hop for me. And it was just something culturally that was like invigorating because I struggled with my identity for a good part of my life. I moved out to the suburbs, Johnson County, in like 3rd grade. And so, I just had an identity crisis from pretty much 3rd grade to 6th grade. 7th grade, I got more roots. After I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, that gave me some substance to stand on. But prior to that, I was struggling. I was in a big old, ocean and not really having my own fins to swim the way I needed to. And so when I found hip hop, hip hop inspired me to, wear my African medallions. It told me it was cool to be black, and I had struggled with that. I used to fight every day in Johnson County for being called an N-word every day. So, it's real. It's real. And so when we are dealing with, hip hop, For me, I'm a purist. I'm a hip hop purist, man. I love hip hop music. And I mean that, in the most uplifting sense. And it's so deep because that's something that was looked at that was like jungle music. They call it, what's this jungle music? Of course, because it's bass heavy, but the drum, the percussion is a part of our culture. And then what are they saying? And it was good because even when you go on the plantation, you had minstrels and then you had spirituals, right? The minstrels were like the stuff that kept the master distracted and entertained. But when they was working, they was singing them spirituals and they was encoding messages and told them this is what's going to happen. This is where we going to be. And this is what we're looking to happen. And there was a whole underground element with music that was present even back in plantations times. And it's the same thing today. When you look at music today, you got the mainstream. You got people who are entertained. The masses. That's the masses. And you can't expect the masses to really open their eyes and understand the undercurrent, what's really going on. But that undercurrent is important. And for those who do have ears to hear, and you're tuned in, and I know we got a lot of people who are tuned into that, it's our responsibility to spread the message, to bring the good news, and this is what Heaven Raiser does with his music. And that's why I'm so, impacted by this brother's music, respecting, tremendously. And I pray for his healing and his wholeness to be, restored to him so he can continue doing what he has done with the music industry, and it's impressive because it's so easy to just take, that contract and to take, the image that the A&Rs create in the music industry for people who really come from nothing, and to all of a sudden get a contract where you got, hundreds of thousands of dollars and even maybe millions, and like Sean Carter and Sean Combs become billionaires from the music industry. Like, wow, like, you want me to do that? That's not a problem. I think of the movie Bamboozled. That movie Bamboozled is so deep because what people will do for money is ridiculous, but then you got the true artists who are true to their art and will use their art for their people. And that's what Sharon Heaven Raiser Smith does. And we're going to bring him back on the show, man. I apologize that, you all didn't get to hear him this evening. You heard more of me. But I hope I covered the air with some conscious content that, was challenging to you all and uplifting and edifying. And we're definitely going to continue this in the near future, most high willing. Just kind of improv the show, just spoke off the heart, what was on my heart. And Sharon Raiser Smith will be back. We'll hopefully get him on the show in the near future. I know that there's about 5 Mondays coming up in October, I think. I think October has 5 Mondays, so there may be some time for that. I may sneak one in or something. I don't know. I'm going to see. Right. I may sneak one in and bring him back on the show and get it organized this time. But I want to thank you all for tuning in. I think Brother Forrest Tyson was his name. I want to thank you for your comments, for adding on to the cipher, for the build, and sharing your thoughts and insights. It's been a pleasure to always come on KUAW and share, shifting paradigms with you all. And I pray that the words are received in the spirit that they're given, because our whole goal with shifting paradigms is to stimulate critical thought in order to realistically reshape our narrative, not reshape, but redefine our narrative and positively reshape our reality through dialogue with self-determination. So again, real quick, on the 17th, we got Kevin Muhammad with the Nation of Islam. We're going to be talking about peace paradigmatics. October 5th, we're going to have Timothy Taylor, a.k.a. Wise Intelligent. We're going to be talking about intelligence paradigmatics. On the 21st, 22nd, we have Tyler A. Norman. We're going to be talking about healing paradigmatics. And then also we have Michelle Williams with the Black Sunflower. We're going to be talking about literary paradigmatics and just expanding the scope and stretching it out some. But again, this is B. Michael here with Shifting Paradigms on KUAW, brought to you by the Black Family Technology Awareness Association with Baba G. Walker holding it down. Make sure you support this radio station. We do have a donation place on the Facebook page, also on the website. You can send in your donations to keep this powerful show moving and running. Not just this show, but the whole program, the whole station. You know, we need the community support. Share this broadcast with others. Come tune into other shows. You got the Lene Gray show. You got my man Source of the Inkwell. You got the Black Degreed and Unfiltered. You got several shows on here that are just doing their thing, and you got Baba G's show that comes on. He got his wife's show as well. You know, there's several shows on here that are very noteworthy to tune into and just get a pulse of what's going on in Kansas City, to say the least. You know, and so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Thank you all again for listening. This is B. Michael with Shifting Paradigms. Shalom, peace and blessings.